Hi, this is your host, Laura Powers, and I'm so pleased today to have Kathryn Beacroft on the show. She is a naturopath, nutritionist, and herbalist, and we're here to talk about a bunch of different things, including frequency, resonance work, bioenergetics, and energy healing. So thanks so much for being a guest on the show.
Thank you so much, Laura. I'm super excited to be here and to share some of my experiences today. I'm over in Australia, so for those of you tuning in, it's morning here, and yeah, thank you, Laura. I'm really honoured to be on your show.
I love this. Yeah, that's one of the amazing things about all this technology. I'm in Colorado and you're in Australia, and we're able to do this. It's really magical. And also that we even got connected. We got connected through mutual acquaintance Leanne, and this was just kind of this magical thing where I just suddenly got added to a Facebook group. I don't know how, and then I reached out to her and I started to make that connection. So it's great. So I'd love if you can share for our audience, for those who aren't familiar with you, just a little bit about you and your background as it relates to your work.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, so as I said, I'm a naturopath, nutritionist, herbalist, but I wasn't always in that field. I was an accountant for over 10 years, and that was where I started off in the world. And I really wasn't well during that time, I guess, because I knew realistically that wasn't my path in life at all. I went to uni, didn't know what to do, ended up studying accounting, and I was basically sick from day one. When I started my work, I was always feeling unwell. Ended up going to a naturopath not till 10 years later when a friend finally said, why don't you try a naturopath? And I had no idea what they were, because this is pre-internet, because back then there wasn't that availability of information. So I went to this naturopath and she had a bioresonance machine, and I was fascinated by it. And she found straight away all these foods my body was reacting to, the reasons why I had felt basically unwell ever since I was young, and I had to eliminate these foods. And within weeks, I just started to feel incredible. I had all this energy and I felt so much better that I decided that was a path I wanted to take. I really wanted to help others find out why they were feeling unwell and to share that information and to study bioresonance. So that was how I ended up becoming a naturopath, and I absolutely love what I do. And I love helping people feel well.
It's amazing how many people who are healers, teachers in the sort of mind, body, spirit space have their own personal journey, because that was very much the same for me. I was a mess. I was a mess, and then I got some help, and then I started my podcast and I started working as a psychic, because going into psychic work really helped me. But it became clear as I delved into this that our mind, body, and spirit are very connected. So you can't be spiritually well if you're physically a mess, and vice versa, because they impact each other. And the more I've learned about, frequency and bioresonance and things like that, the more I realized how important it is, and also how it can help us shift things very quickly. So for those who are familiar with maybe those terms, can you explain a little bit about what that even is?
Yeah, so good question, because seriously, yeah, I had no idea myself. So I understand that you don't know what you don't know. And that's where I always come from when I'm seeing anybody in my clinic. I never assume they know much. Some of the people know a lot, some don't know so much about health. The bioresonance is to do with frequencies, and it works on that whole concept that everything in the world has a frequency. We know that that's physics. And I always say it's like the physicists such as Albert Einstein, Tesla, all were studying these energy frequencies for a long time prior to this becoming common knowledge. And they were seen as quite eccentric in their times. But we are so lucky that they researched all this, because that's what all this technology is based on, their science. And so basically these machines, the one that I use in my clinic, was created by physicists. And so they can record the frequencies of everything in the world. They record all the nutrients, all the different foods that you might be eating. They can even record things such as organ frequencies as well, to help identify if there's an imbalance in certain organs. But I love doing food intolerances. So it sends the frequencies into your body. If your body reacts to that food frequency, as in resists that frequency, the machine can actually pick up that resistance. So that in itself is incredible to find. So for some people, but like for myself, that was the answer I had needed for all those years. For 30 years, I had suffered because I was eating foods that were affecting my body energetically and just making me feel unwell. So I love doing that. I do a food intolerance for people, and often it just helps them find some missing links in their plan as to how they can get well. And then the same with nutrients, it can pick up things that your body might be lacking in. And we know on a daily basis, if our body's massively lacking in certain nutrients, it doesn't matter how good we eat, sometimes we just can't get enough of that nutrient. We can still feel unwell. So it's fascinating technology, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's something that's amazing, and I completely agree with you that everything has a frequency. And so foods have a frequency, medicines have a frequency, different emotions have a frequency, different people have an overall frequency, and then different parts of them have different frequencies. And so what I've gotten psychically is that when you work on the frequency, you can basically kind of get at the root and really shift things. And it's also possible to do that through medicines, and obviously, what we eat is really important, but at the same time, we can use help and support to just go right, kind of cut right to the chase. That's what I feel like it is, by going to the frequency. And we're lucky now because we're living in a time when we now have technology that is able to, like you said, measure these different frequencies and then also be able to adjust or modify them. So can you talk a little bit about the technology? Because I'm just learning about the tech and how this works, but what is the technology that is there now that can go right at the frequency level?
Mm-hmm. So before we go on, I just wanted to say a medical disclaimer, just being aware that I'm a naturopath nutritionist, and everything I'm saying is just based on my opinion, my knowledge, and I'm not making any medical claims. So anyone watching this, be aware what I'm saying may or may not help you. So just keep that in mind. We have to be very aware of that with regards to government regulations as well. So I just wanted to say that moving forward. But so in terms of these devices, there's many different devices actually available as naturopaths and nutritionists, and even doctors, like some doctors in the US and Australia will have these devices. So without actually naming the names of them, but just being aware, like I said, they're called bioresonance in general. So they all work on that similar concept that it's sending a frequency to your body, and your body's responding to that frequency, whether your body sees that frequency as positive for your body or negative for your body. So to break it down into those basic concepts, and there are new devices that have been brought out just recently, and I know you're aware of one in particular, and one of them is the Healy. So we're aware of that. But these devices are made, there's different devices. Mine was made in the UK. There's devices made all in different countries throughout the world. So what I love about them is that the frequencies, yes, there's some that are used only by practitioners. There are some now that are available, such as the Healy, for use by everyone. And I think that's an exciting development in the health world. I really, really do. And I just believe that the idea of having frequencies to help us get well, to me, is a fabulous compliment, like you said, to whether it be in the medical profession, wherever your journey takes you. And we know there's incredible doctors and incredible medicines. There's so many different approaches to health and well-being. And it's always finding what works for you. Because we know some people get well one way, other people have to find, like you said, whether it's going to a psychic, finding some clearing of some energy block in their whole bioenergetic field. And I think that's another whole concept that is just now becoming more and more popular. Even in my own journey, like you were saying, my initial journey was more on that physical level, finding foods, nutrients that I needed. And then in the last few years, I've become much more aware of that psychic element and how seeing a psychic can actually help my healing to a certain extent. And that's what I've been using the last 4 years. I have seen certain psychics. So I would have seen you, Laura. But I may do that very soon.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like we should just use all the tools that work for us. And again, as you said, that's going to be different for different people. And also different tools can work for you at different times. Like I've had a time where I felt like using a particular modality or healer, and then I feel like I kind of capped out on that, and suddenly it was like not the thing anymore, even though it was so helpful at the time that I went to it. So I think it's really important to pay attention to our bodies and intuition in terms of what's coming forward. And absolutely, like, we're not giving medical advice here. Definitely recommend for people to check with their, doctor or health professional. But I do think that when we focus on the energy and shifting and clearing blocks, that a lot of times we can completely prevent illness, or prevent whatever I should say is, maybe even creating the issue to begin with. So that is super powerful. And I love that expression, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If you can just shift the energy in your body before the illness develops. Because really, I feel like illness is simply a set of symptoms. And that means that whatever that energy blockage has gone on long enough that the body is simply no longer able to cope. That's what I feel like is going on a deeper level. And it's interesting because when people come to me, and sometimes I can see the blocked energy, and I'm, don't act as a medical medium, but I can just say, I just see blocked energy and here's kind of where it is. And that's never a good thing. Like, and I've had many different situations with clients where they had blocked energy and like, later a serious illness did develop where I saw the block. And that's not even to say that the illness was there when I saw the block, but then left in time, that will develop. It's kind of like, when you have a plumbing problem and like it just gets worse and worse. And like, before the sink gets backed up completely, there's been a clog that's been gradually growing and growing over,
Totally.
a long time. But usually
Yeah.
what happens, we only notice it, and the same thing happens in our bodies when that flow is stopped to the point where things stop to function. And that's, I think, when illness develops, is when that flow is just completely stopped or just very, very, very slow.
Totally agree with what you're saying there, Laura. And with regards to removing emotional blocks, one thing I love using as a naturopath is the bark flower and bushflower essences, which you may or may not be aware of, but they're frequencies from flowers. So I find, and especially in young children, because they have no preconceived ideas of what you're giving them as to whether it will help them or not. And so many parents get so amazed when you create a bark flower remedy for the child, which might remove some of their fear or their anxiety or their jealousy is a huge one for young kids. And so these remedies, like you're saying, they help remove those emotional blocks for everyone, but in particular, I just love seeing it in young kids. And like you're just saying as well, definitely energy blocks on an emotional level. We never know what comes first. Sometimes you might have had an accident which created that trauma in the body. And I believe if that stored trauma cannot be released, it's very hard for that person to often reach that full level of wellness. And I've seen that in my practice where the people come in and I do refer them on to see other modalities, of whether it be a counsellor, a psychic, or somebody that I know is going to help them shift that energy, because otherwise you can get them physically well, but there's still a blockage in their body and you just know that they're not emotionally well or they're not emotionally balanced. And like you said, it'll either come back or it'll actually get worse, even though you seem to have them at a certain level. So blockages in that energetic level are absolutely vital to help clear, for sure. Like that, yeah. And I don't think I realized that for the first few years when I was practicing. It took me a while to come to that realization.
Yeah, I think, we access different levels of healing where we're ready. So for me, a lot of my healing journey first involved me leaving an emotionally unhealthy situation in my marriage. And then I had some medical diagnoses, polycystic ovary syndrome, and some other things that were wrong. I was definitely insulin resistant. And I went to alternative health practitioners who helped me with, my nutrition and diet and, figuring out what my food intolerances were. And so it was definitely a multi-step process. Like, this was not a silver bullet, like, bam, and then I'm healed and it's amazing. Like, it was in process and increments, and also incorporating a lot of different approaches and modalities. So obviously intuitive work, opening up those blocked channels, for me and my body, creative work, working on my diet, figuring out food intolerances, figuring out substances that I had, toxins and things. So I think it's so complex. I feel like a lot of people listening are maybe frustrated because they feel like they're hitting a wall, and it's just like, try different things, see, what's working. And sometimes you do something and it works to a degree, and then you need to shift to something else to get to another level of healing. And I think that's totally normal. Did you find that for yourself as well?
Yeah, I did totally what you're saying. So yeah, you get that physical level right, nutrients, foods, whatever, and then it becomes more obvious to you that you might have some other issues going on. So for myself, I think as we've grown up, there's been maybe events that have happened in our life that might have stressed us out. And so we might then go, hold on a minute, I know that that's still affecting me. How about I look into that? So that's definitely what I did. I started going to personal development courses, and that was a real breakthrough for me, finding that emotional element was still massively affecting me. And I don't think I'd ever realized that. It was like when I grew up, it was like, oh, you're happy, everything's fine. There was none of that expression of emotion so much. It was like, go to school, do what you need to do, go to uni, do this. And it wasn't until I was just after 30 that I suddenly realized there's this whole other world of personal development. And that helped me realize all these emotions I'd actually stuffed down throughout my childhood. And I'll give you one example, which still shocks me to this day. I went to this Louise Hay workshop, and we had to express, I know, it was the first course I ever did with one of my beautiful friends that was running it. And we had to talk about something that had happened in our childhood. I couldn't talk. I literally could not talk. And I still remember trying to talk, and whatever I wanted to say would not come out because I'd stuffed everything down so far. So that was the first breakthrough for me. Obviously, it ended in tears, and then I released all this emotion, but made me realize that there was a lot of things that I had to deal with. So, and I guess for anyone watching this, sometimes no matter where you're at, you might be just at the beginning of that whole path, but yeah, seek some help. Have a session with Laura. Do something to help you bring some of those trapped energies out, because otherwise, we know they're so unhealthy for us. We know negative energy, is just can basically ultimately almost kill us. So I guess that's what I believe now, that we need to address those things. And sometimes it's scary and we don't want to do it. I remember after that first session, I didn't want to go back to that group. I was like, oh my gosh, that was embarrassing. But I kept going, and I felt so much better. So emotional blockages are massive for health, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up that a lot of times it doesn't feel good when you're doing it, because I think it's kind of like, physical purging. You're going through this emotional purge, and you think about, like, let's say you drink too much and you gotta vomit. Not to be like really kind of gross, but you got to get those toxins out. It's really unpleasant, but then afterwards, when you clear that out, you feel better. And I think that happens on an emotional level, so it can actually feel pretty unpleasant while you're going through that. And then also just to say that there is definitely a physical component to a lot of our emotions. So for example, for myself, whenever I'm really struggling with anger, if I'm feeling angry, it's like, oh, I need some work on my liver, because in Chinese medicine, the liver is connected with the emotion of anger. So I think a lot of people don't realize there is this physical connection between organ systems and different emotions. And so, absolutely look at it from the psychic realm, the sort of energetic realm, and then work on, healing that particular organ system or whatever. So there's, different ways that you can do that, but I think it's so important. And also just to understand that how much of this is biochemical. Like, the more I learn about this stuff, the more I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like, this isn't just coincidence. Like, even anger, there's a biochemical thing going on that kind of generates anger. Isn't that fascinating? Do you have any stories about anything like that?
I totally agree with what you just said. The biochemical link with the organs is incredible, and anger is a big one, I think, for a lot of people. Definitely, I've had experiences of anger in my life, and if you don't release that, like you were just saying, if you store that, then it can make you feel unwell. It really can. So I guess, personally, like, definitely that's been an issue for me, dealing with all different emotions. One of them was anger. Guilt was a big one. I'll just share with you, I've got obviously patients that I've seen results where we've helped clear emotions and they start to get well. Chronic fatigue, I find, is a big one. To me, it's hard to know exactly, like, everyone will have a different emotion behind that. But I find with that, unless you get to that emotion of what else is going on for them, they can't get well. They'll stay in that tired state, because it's almost like their body's protecting them from the world, because they've been hurt in some way. So I often see that. I also see it in people that have been in really maybe awful accidents, car accidents, physical accidents. They'll have a happy face and say everything's fine, but there's often that stored trauma in their cells, and I believe that that's a big part of them getting well. And it's very difficult, obviously, to go through that. Even I have a personal story of that. Not that I was in a car accident. When I was 8, I decided to try and do a somersault as I was running towards a lake, which is a really bizarre thing to do. Went headfirst into the sand after running full pelt. So I basically ripped all the muscles in my back, really damaged my back.
Right.
Yeah. I was lucky that there was someone there. Like, it was crazy. It was a really crazy episode. So obviously I had a lot of guilt. I had a lot of trauma. I blamed myself, all these emotions at such a young age. And again, my back just ached like crazy, but luckily I didn't have any permanent damage. But at the time, the reason I'm bringing that up is it's only now that my back has healed. That's 42 years later. And I believe it's due to this new frequency device that helped to heal some of that emotion, which I'd never even thought about until I had this new device. And I'd seen every physio, chiro, and they'd all helped me, but my back would always still hurt, or it would always just go straight out of place, to the point that I couldn't hardly walk half the time. I couldn't run. So that's a big issue for me. And it's made me realise how much that trauma of that initial event probably was holding in my cells and preventing my back from feeling normal. So now I can run. I've only had this new device since January, and I can now run every day. So anyone listening to this that's what makes me so passionate about frequencies, knowing that this new device I had, the frequencies were what cleared some of that emotional trauma, I believe, for myself. And everyone's different. Everyone will have a different experience. So I'm not saying if you've got a back issue, suddenly it's all going to be healed. But I just think that's that element of emotion stored in your body can have its effect on so many different health issues. So definitely very important to help clear that. And like I said, I know you help do those sorts of things as well, Laura, with what you do. So many ways to help clear trauma, but so important to address it.
Oh yeah, I agree. And also all the tools, like, yeah, do the psychic work, do the emotional work, do the resonance work. And I think, when you do all that, that's when you can have really profound shifts. So yeah, let's talk about the device a little, because that's what initially got us connected. And I've been really impressed. And this is a device called the Healy. It is, I believe it's technically a microcurrent device, but it basically is a resonance device. And by the way, if you want more information, it's on my website, healingpowers.net/Healy, so Healy. And I'll just share a little bit about my story with it. I had been reading this book, The Resonance Effect. Are you familiar with that book, Kathryn?
I haven't read it. I've heard of it, yes.
Yeah, it's a great book, and it just was talking from a different practitioner, and she does use a different type of device, but it's similar. Talking about her experience with it being developing the technology and how it was used, and it just really resonated for me. It's funny, it's called resonance, and resonated. There's this resonance aspect, and suddenly I was in this Facebook group, and I was like, how did I even get in this group? And then I reached out to Leanne, and I learned more about the device, and I immediately psychically was like, there is something here. I felt it. And I tried it, and as soon as I tried it, I was like, I have to have this thing. and so and by the way, if you're listening to this as we've recorded it or recently recorded, I don't have it yet, because I just recently ordered it, but I was so impressed that I've had 4 different sessions, and I could really feel this frequency working on me, and did a few different programs, and I could literally feel, some pretty quick impacts from the device. So I just know that regardless of if I understand of exactly how the technology works, I know that my experience has been very significant. So I would love for people to learn more about bioresonance, the Healy, and any other technology that is working in similar ways. Can you tell your story about Healy and how you got connected with it?
Sure. So I was told about it at the end of last year by Leanne, actually. She's a good friend of mine too. And initially I was skeptical, totally skeptical, because I knew I had my bioresonance in my office. I was like, why would I want another device that deals with frequencies? I already have one. I don't need anything else. But I did have a look, because I thought, well, you never know, it could help some of my chronically ill patients. I'll just see what this is. And I was like you, Laura, the moment I tried it and felt the frequencies, I just knew I actually had to have it. And you basically wanted it there and then, that very second.
Yeah, it was I'm like, yep, I need it.
Yeah. You just know, you know, you have that knowing in your body. So straight away we ordered it, and it came within a week. Now, leading up to Christmas, I was quite unwell, just because I had 4 years of a chronic illness in our house, and that had just really, really exhausted me, to the point that I would have given myself a 1 or 2 out of 10 energy-wise. I just was absolutely depleted. I had patients saying to me, "Are you okay?" Like, I really wasn't going great. So I got the device, and I thought, well, I was lying around because I had no energy. I thought I'll just run a whole lot of different programs. And with the first night, I slept for 12 hours straight, which to me is just mad. Like, I don't ever do that. And the next night, the same thing, 12 hours straight. I could go to bed, and I thought, oh, surely that won't happen again. 2 nights in a row. The third morning, I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I just felt this complete energy in my whole body. Like, I felt I'd gone from, like I said, a 1 or 2 out of 10. I basically felt like I could jump out of bed and run down the hall. That's how energized I felt. Like, I felt like a 10 out of 10. So I was like, okay, there is something in this. Like, I did not expect that at all. So also my back had been, I'm not happy, and that just felt so much better. So I was super, super excited. Could not believe it. And then I've seen shifts in patients that have had chronic illnesses, and I've been helping them. Like, they're patients I've seen for a long time, and we get them to that certain level, but to shift, like we were talking before, some of those energetic blocks, I'm finding this device is even helping at that level as well. And what excites me is that person can go and see the doctor, or whatever their practitioner is. They might go and get a massage, they might go to the chiro, they might go to the acupuncturist. But if they have the Healy as well, they can support all those treatments the same. They go and see you, Laura. they can then support that new emotional balance that they have. So I just think, and they can run it for 1, 2, 3 hours a day. So none of us normally go to any practitioner for 3 hours a day. We just don't. It would cost a fortune. So that's what I love about it. We can sit at home, go to the practitioners that we need to go to, but then support our body as well on that cellular level. And it is emitting frequencies, and they're all, like you said, in America, it has the FDA clearance. In Australia, it's known as a holistic wellness device. So it has different approvals in different countries. And like we said earlier, we're not making any medical claims. We're just saying this may help you. And then that's what excites me. If it's the missing piece of the puzzle for you, it may just be what you need to get into that higher energy state. So yeah, I'm super excited that I came across it, definitely. And I do believe a lot of people, if you're looking for something like this, that's when it comes to you.
Yeah, no, it is. It was amazing because I'd literally been reading the book, The Resonance Effect, and then like suddenly I was in this group and connected with this circle, and I was like, that's so funny. Thanks, angels. Because I honestly feel like that's what it was. Like it was just this kind of, and I've talked to another woman who is near me that the same thing happened. She was like, suddenly I was just in the group and I don't know how. So I think that's really
amazing,
really awesome. And I had been doing some research on some other kind of resonance frequency devices, and a lot of them are very expensive, and I think a lot of them work very well, but they're designed more for, you know, some kind of practitioner to use it. So they're priced accordingly. They might be tens of thousands of dollars or something. And so that's the other thing I liked about this is I feel like it's very accessible, especially considering that you can use it over and over again, and it just hooks in with your iPhone or your Android phone. And so it's just like very small and it's very easy to use with an app. It's not that there's another device, and I'm not going to say the name of that, but I had been looking into that device, and it was like it's big and clunky, and you need a separate laptop ideally to run it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's just too much. I just can't, you know, with traveling and stuff, being like, here's my separate laptop and here's my device. So I loved how like clean and streamlined this was. And for those who are interested, it starts at around $500 US, and then it goes up from there from the different levels of features. And again, that's healingpowers.net/Healy, where you can find information. I'd love if you can share any information about your experiences with the particular platform and like how to use it.
Sure. So what you're saying, like it's just so user friendly. That's what I love about it, that anyone with a phone, you just hook it up. You don't have to understand actually what is happening in your body, because it basically just categorizes the programs into things like balance, into energy. So they're just basic words. You look at it and go, oh, I want to have more energy. I'll click energy. I want to feel more balance. I click balance. I want to feel more relaxed. I'll press relax. So that's what I love about that whole app idea. If I've got pain, I'll go to the pain programs. If I'm feeling a bit anxious, I might run a program to just calm my nervous system. So you don't have to understand it. And that's the whole idea, that it is a device for everyone. It is not a practitioner device, like you're saying, because Healy itself, the parent company is Time Waver, and they make practitioner devices similar to mine. And mine was over $20,000. So they're not cheap at all. So those practitioners have done a lot of training to be able to use those devices. But these devices here, I find it's a massive support tool for anyone. And yeah, that's why I love it, that anyone can access this. And that was the developer of the device, Marcus Schmecke, he's German. His whole concept was that he could have a device that would be able to be shared amongst families and friends, and to help everyone, because his company developed the big devices, the Time Waver devices that are very expensive. But he wanted this smaller version. And that's what came to him when he was only very young meditating. He was a monk from the age of 18 for 12 years. That came to him during that time. This was what he needed to do. This was his life purpose. So he actually left being a monk to create this device. So I think that's an incredible story in itself. It really, really is. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
it. Amazing story.
Yeah, and if you're interested and want to learn more about this, like I said, you can go to healingpowers.net/Healy. The other thing you could do is just feel free to reach out to me, bookings@laurapowers.net. I have a webinar I'm happy to share with you or answer any questions. As soon as I experienced it, I just really felt like I want people to know about this and know that there are tools and resources, especially right now as we're recording this in the United States. There's, crazy things happening and it's all over the world too, but I just, I'm here in the US, and it does seem extra strong here with COVID, and we have, riots and issues with protests and police brutality, and there's a lot happening and a lot of healing needed. So I think it's a really great resource. Well, this has been amazing, Kathryn. I feel like we could just talk for a long time. We'll just have to have you back. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
Thank you so much, Laura, for being on here today. I've absolutely loved sharing my passion. And you did say just to mention my website, so I'll just do that briefly for anyone that does want to find out more about what I do. It's www.behealth.net.au. Feel free to send me an email with any questions, but obviously reach out to Laura, being in America, and she will help you. But lovely to be on here, and just loved talking about frequencies and health and well-being, and I love that whole psychic world as well. It's a new passion of mine for sure.
Oh, yay. I love it. Yeah, and one of the things I am wanting to put out to the universe, I'm doing it right now and I've been doing it for a while, is to manifest a really amazing trip to Australia. I've been planning to go, and then everything happened with the fires, and it was just like not a good time to go. So I'm really hoping it'd be amazing to connect with you in person. So I hope that lines up.
For sure. That'd be amazing. So definitely can't wait for that to happen.
Me too. Well, thank you so much, Kathryn, and we'll definitely make sure to put your links and everything in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you, Laura. Absolutely loved it. Have a wonderful day.
Night. Yes, either way.
Exactly. Thanks, Laura.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you'd like more information about me, you can go to my website, healingpowers.net. You can find me at Twitter at @LauraPowers, Instagram at LauraPowers44, and on Facebook at Healing Powers. Many blessings and abundance to you.